In this segment of the tutorials, we'll be looking at the tuning and the scales that are used throughout the song. The tuning for the song is in drop C for the most part, so from low to high that is C, then G, then C again, then F, then A, then D. Now there are some other guitar parts in the song that use a different tuning, like the second lead guitar part, which uses D standard tuning. This is basically the same as drop C, except the low C on the 6th string is tuned to D instead. But we'll be focusing mainly on the lead guitar part throughout these tutorials, so you won't need to be adjusting your tuning as we go. Now the key of the song is in C minor throughout, but because we're in drop C tuning, we'll be playing in positions that you would normally think of as D minor if you're more used to standard E tuning, like D minor at the 10th fret for example. As we're technically in C minor, I'm going to refer to things relative to that. So when I refer to specific notes or specific chords or anything like that, it's going to be in relation to C minor rather than D, even though we are playing in what we would normally think of as D position kind of scales. So that's something to just bear in mind, especially if you're a little unfamiliar or quite new to non-standard tunings. Now with that in mind, let's get ourselves familiar with the scale patterns that we'll be using during the song before we take a look at the main theme or the main solo parts. Now you'll find these scale patterns in exercise 1 of the additional exercises folder in your song pack. And once you've got that open, the first thing you'll notice is that all the scale patterns start from the 5th string. Again, as we're in drop C, full 6th string scale patterns don't fully work due to the 6th string being dropped down a whole tone. But since the lead guitar doesn't actually make use of the 6th string during the song, it works out well to use these scale patterns that start from the 5th string. So let's go through each of them in turn and hear how they sound. So one thing you'll notice is that the last two scale patterns are actually the same scale patterns. One is just played an octave above the other. Now the reason I've included that last one, the octave below, is because that scale pattern in particular is one that we use quite frequently, so it's worth paying particular attention to that and getting very familiar with it. Now with these scale patterns, if you're already familiar with your 7 major scale positions in the 3 note per string form, these will seem quite familiar, these scale patterns. If not, then what these will do is act as a really great foundation for you to start learning these types of scales where you have 3 notes per strings and you play all the different positions of the major scale. So with that done, let's move on to the next segment where we're going to look at the main theme of the song.